morning and hello. I've had a request to do a more serious video about the racing and to do an explanation in more depth about how we do the analysis and the approach and selections of the racing on a daily basis. So who better to do it than the risk manager? So anyway, we'll give it a go. The starting point really for our analysis in racing is to try and filter through all the day's cards and come up with one or two races which are of potential interest, which will fulfill our criteria, which we'll talk about in a minute. But let's start and talk about surface pace profiles, because when I talk about modelled figures, then that's what we're really talking about. So a surface pace profile is basically a numerical measure which we've developed of the for an individual track and an individual distance or course that the horse will have to overcome to actually run on that course. So if you take the all-weather and there's in the UK and there's one in Ireland. So you've got Lingfield L, Kempton K, Wolverhampton W, Chelmsford C, Southwell S, Dundalk in Ireland D, and Newcastle N. So you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 all-weather tracks which are regularly racing in the UK and Ireland. And then you've got the distances, where they're primarily you've got 5 furlongs, 6 furlongs, 7, 8, 10 and 12, and you've got a few beyond that. You've got 14 furlongs and occasionally you've got 2 miles, which sort of links in with National Hunt Flat as well. But anyway, the gist of it is that most people realise that the shorter a distance a horse races, the relative pace of the race is quicker. So sprints tend to be run at a faster pace than mile races, and so on. And mile races tend to be run at a faster pace than mile and a halves, etc. Well, that's a sort of a given, but that is dependent on also dependent on the shape or topography of the track. So is it a straight mile like at Newcastle, or is it quite a tight bend on say at Lingfield initially on the 5? So what we've done is we've taken into consideration numerous factors which are modelled and come up basically with a number for the surface pace profile. Now the higher this number is, and it peaks out at about 100, the faster the surface pace profile is. In other words, the faster the task the horse will be asked to achieve in terms of running the race. So the lower the number, the slower and more stamina. The higher the number, the speedier and the faster. So Lingfield, for example, is a sort of a benchmark. At 5 is 100, and then at 6 these figures naturally drop off as you go up in distance, as we said, but they also change relative to the courses. So Southwell is 100 plus, and that's an unusual 5 furlongs in that it's the straight course as opposed to the rest of the distances are on the turn and around the loop. So anyway, if you want to you'll be able to take a screenshot of that and see the figures. But the interesting thing is you get sort of situations where, for example, so you can compare different distances at different all-weather tracks. And so, for example, the interesting one here is maybe Wolverhampton. The 6 is 93, which is the slowest of the lot. Only Southwell is near it, and yet you've got Lingfield at 99, and so on and so forth. So these are things to bear in mind. So when we're looking at, say, all-weather races, what we do is we initially look at the favourite and see whether, so the task of the day, supposing we're running at, I don't know, Kempton 6, So we'll be looking at it modelled at 97, and if it's previously been running at Lingfield 6, we know that that was a little bit quicker at 99, and if it was running at Chelmsford, it was just a smidgen quicker at 98. So what we do is we look at the favourite normally just to get us underway, and we look at the profile of the horse, and then we watch the races in the context of these surface pace profiles. So if the horse is and its profile really. So if the horse is going to be racing at Kempton 6 at 97, that's the task, and we look at what it's been racing at relative to Kempton 6 and what it's actually been achieving at its actual surface pace profile. So it's context really. So we're putting the horse's form into some sort of context initially. Now, if the favourite looks sort of looks reasonable, like can it handle the surface speed profile, pace profile, then the likelihood is we'll leave the race alone. So what we're looking for is favourites that are either flattered by the fact that they've been running either on faster surface pace profiles or slower surface pace profiles, and will be attempting something quite different. And then so that's the starting point. So anyway, we'll stop it there, and then we'll go into a little bit more detail about the process as we develop it. Right, good morning again. We've given the risk manager the elbow, and we're back to Professor Code. Now carrying on from that, so you've just seen the surface pace profiles for the all-weather. So as we said, the starting point, we normally like to look for races that have got relatively low number of runners, and the things to look out for are FTOs, first time outers. They're very difficult to price because you can't get a look at them when we don't have any contacts at stables or whatever. So that's something else to bear in mind. So you've got FTOs, the number of runners. I mean, these are all relative, and the type of race really. That's the starting point. So let's assume you found a race with not too many runners, so 6 or 7 runners. There aren't. If you're going to have an FTO in there, you want it to be a big price. So you want it to be like potentially nobody thinks it's any good. So 12 to 1 plus really, because then you can just hedge it off relatively cheaply, and you can still play that race and cover yourself really, because I mean, ideally the bigger the price the better for the FTO, and not be put off by stupid prices either. So if it's 40 to 1, that's even better. But anyway, so that's that. So the number of runners then, so if you look, we like sort of generally, because lower number of races, because it's obviously you've got to work your way right through them, and the type of race, so we tend to like races that with unexposed or less exposed runners. So in other words, they haven't got too many miles on the clock, the horses. And why do we like that? Because we've spent a lot of time looking at the actual physical characteristics of horses. So we know what a 5-6 furlong horse should look like. We know what a 7 and 8 one. We know middle distance, and we know 12 pluses. So you know, we've spent a lot of time, as I said, modelling and looking at horses, the so-called physical characteristics of these horses. And whilst we used to go to the course, we don't have the time to go to the course, so we have to infer that from just looking at them on the reruns, and sometimes you get a good look at them and sometimes you don't. Now the other thing is you need to be aware of the action of the horse, is there anything obvious? Does it have a high knee action? Does it have does it sort of skim the ground? This will be relevant to the type of going it likes, but that's all obviously quite simplistic. Does it paddle? Does it have a sort of a flick action going around the bend? Does it, at worst case, does it crossfire? And that means is it on the wrong leads when it's running? And all these things are taken into consideration. Does it have a short stride? And basically, we're looking for A movers. We're looking for things that you sort of light you up when you watch it. You think, yeah, that horse can really turn on the gas and moves nicely in a straight line, and doesn't. Then the next thing you're looking for when you're looking at a rerun is does the horse hang? Now this comes back to our surface pace profiles. Now, if the horse is, say, going to run at a slower pace profile that it's been running at, so I suppose it's been running at a quicker surface like Lingfield over a distance, and it's started to hang, which basically means it's sort of like treading water almost, but not fully treading water with its head to one side. It's not happy on the ground. Now that can be an important point to note. And you can accept that if it's coming back in surface pace profile. If it's going up in surface pace profile and it's outpaced at a slower surface pace profile, then that's something to be quite wary of. So because it's probably going to be lean less suited. So, but that's something that we're looking for in the favourites. We're looking for horses that are either hanging or have a peculiar action. And will not be suited to the next phase of the operation. So that's something in sort of general terms. And then we start to look at the horses in depth, and we look at the profile as a whole. That's why we like them unexposed. Really, we don't want to see we don't want to have to flog through 20 races and get a mixed picture. So what we want to do is we want to try and have a logical progression. So if it's going up if it's being pushed up by the trainer up in distance, and this is a further distance, this race, then we want to see a logical progression, and we want to see the horse acting as we would expect given the track profile and all the rest of it. So, and if we can feel we can say yes, we can put a tick on the horse and say yes, we understand why the horse runs like that or why it doesn't. What we don't like to see is a horse that performs particularly well at a slow surface profile, and then suddenly performs equally well at a fast surface profile, because we're looking for specialists or horses which are unsuited, particularly if we're betting against them. We want horses that are unsuited by the current conditions. So that's one thing more. So we're sort of decanting all this into looking at the individual horses, and then obviously if we can knock out the front end of the market, the first two, or if not, if we can use it as an anchor horse, so that we'll just accept the fact that it's probably going to win, but there's another horse in there at decent odds, 8, 10, 12 to 1, that we can have a go at. It's better to do that than to go each way on the longer horse, because you've actually got a much better chance of scoring. At least the place element is effectively the favourite, but that's another story anyway. So once we do that, so we start looking at the horses in depth. And then we don't read all the drivel. The race analysis, our primary data source is like most people's the Racing Post website, and we've got a premium account which allows us to access all the data and the replays and so forth. So we just start trawling through the horses, and if we can find horses which are a low price, which are patently not suited to the conditions, then the race is of more interest to us. And then we start to look at the opposition and start to see if there's anybody in there who is more suited to the conditions and has been overlooked. So we're looking for bigger price horses which are suited by their conditions and the profile of the horse. We try and sort of imagine ourselves in the trainer's position, in the does it make sense where they've entered the horse? Are they using their brains? Do they have the same information we do? And even anecdotally, they won't have it modelled, but they'll have it if through experience. They'll know, for example, that Lingfield 5 is a quick, and Southall 5 is also quick, and things like that. They'll know that anecdotally. Any trainer that's worth its salt, or they won't be in business very long. So that's what we're looking for, really. And so when we're looking at National Hunt, we've got the same sort of issues. We've got we could talk a bit more in detail about that in maybe another video if you're interested. But the gist of it is that the National Hunt surface pace profiles are a little bit more complicated. They run from about 13.5 up to about 14.9 odd and change, and the range is tighter, and the minimum distance is normally on the National Hunt is about 2 miles, and the surface pace profile is really to do with the nature of the course topography, more so because it's further distances. Is it sharp? Is it hilly? Is it whatever? Is it undulating? And also the factor of the jumps and the nature of the jumps. Are they stiff, easy, or whatever? So it's more of a guide on the National Hunt. It's less numerical, but it's a good guide. For Huntingdon, for example, is a fast course, and Haydock's obviously a bit slower, but and we can sort of prove that modelling and numerically. So that sort of ties in there. We're not going to dwell too much on the National Hunt in this video. It would be too long. But the flat, obviously, the turf. When we're into the turf season, early on you're getting a switch over between the all-weather and the turf horses as they come out, and that's when you've got an advantage if you can translate we've got surface pace profiles for all the flat courses, and you can obviously transfer them to the all-weather and all the rest of it. So that's where you can win, really, in the early part of the flat, is deciding whether you've got decent all-weather horses are going to beat new turf horses and vice versa. Anyway, that's another video as well, really. So what we're looking at really is, I mean, in the ideal world, you could say we just want to bet one horse to win and that's it. But that's not necessarily true. If the shape of the race is such that we can hedge it off and make a profit, or at least not get hurt too much. Recently, we've come unstuck a couple of times. We've taken a view against favourites that have come in, and they perform better, or we've underrated them. But that's just racing, and we're not perfect, and the modelling's not perfect. So there's an analysis phase to it. But generally, that's so. When we're giving the daily videos and we're talking about the modelled value or the surface pace profile, then what we're trying to do is we're trying to match our horses with the task, and we're hopefully eliminating horses which are lower, shorter odds, that are less suited by the task involved.